Let's look first of all at chapter 1. And he says in verse 13, when tempted. Anybody here ever tempted? All right, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. All right, that ain't just going to happen. That's not going to happen. This is not within God's nature to try to tease you into doing something that's wrong. God's not tempting you. It's not coming from Him. You know, it's possible for some people to get an idea like that. God knows I'm weak. If he put me in this situation, He knows I can't stand up to it, so it's just, okay, I'm just going to give in. No. Is that how it is? No, of course not. That's just an excuse to give in. God's not tempting you. In fact, He says He doesn't tempt us, doesn't put us in a place we can't handle. He says with the temptation, 1 Corinthians 10, with the temptation, He will make an escape. A way of escape so that you can be able to bear it. So yes, God allows temptation, but He's not the tempter. Never is He trying to just put you in a place so you'll fall. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. Okay, well, where does it come from? For God cannot be tempted by evil. See, that tells us something's happened to our nature. The fact that we can be tempted. Says something's wrong here. Something's changed. Something is not according to the manufacturer's design here. That's all been ruined. Something's been changed. Cannot be tempted by evil, nor does He tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when by his own evil desire he is dragged away and enticed. When you're tempted and you give in, don't you look anywhere else except in the mirror. You're the one whose desires are being appealed to. You're the one who was yielding. And God doesn't tell us that to condemn us, but He sure does tell us that to inform us so that we don't live under an illusion. We are tempted by our own evil desires. Something appeals to that and we give in. He's dragged away. And I'll tell you, that's an interesting way to put it, isn't it? Dragged away. You're yielding yourself to somebody. There's a power. And there are devils behind that power. But there is a power that will literally take hold of you and your will can be just overpowered. I guarantee everybody here knows what it's like to get in such a state that you do something wrong and you're in the middle of doing it and you know it's wrong and you do it anyway. Yeah. Well, I'd have to agree with you. I know what that's like. You know, I'm thankful to God. I hate it, but I'm thankful to God that reminds me what I am, how much I need Him, that I'm helpless without Him. Oh my God, we think so highly of ourselves. We need to be looking up and be thankful for the grace of God that reaches unworthy sinners. So here's this person. God didn't tempt him, but he got tempted. It's tempted to go against what everything God is by His very nature. To embrace something that is evil, what happens? He's taken captive. She's taken captive. Then what happens? It says, then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And I know everybody here knows what it's like to have something just work on you. Something that would pull you in the wrong direction. It works on you and it works on you and it works on you. It's like a seed in there and it's growing. And man, if you don't nip that, if we don't find grace, and I say if we don't find grace, that thing's going to grow. It's going to come up. And what comes up is sin. Something that is wrong, something that is contrary to the design and purpose of God. Okay, well, what's the consequence of that? So what? Somebody might say. After desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. You want to know why God hates sin? Because He knows far better than any of us what it does. Its terrible power to destroy. The very things to which men are so readily addicted, and it is addiction, absolutely destroy us if we yield to them. You know, think about the situation where you're a loving parent. You have a very small child and you want the best for them. And you go out in the yard one day and your little child is playing with a poisonous snake. I'm trying to think of the real pretty one, the coral snake. They found this beautiful little coral snake and they just are determined to play with that thing. It's beautiful. It feels so neat to hold and to play with. Now just think about how you would feel if they just were defiant in their attitude toward you. I'm going to play with that thing. What right do you have to take away my joy, to take away my fun, to tell me what I can and can't do? What's the motive of the parent there who says, don't do that, put that down? What's the motive of the parent? Do you do that out of malice? Do you do that as a power game where you're just trying to put them under your thumb and make them do what you know? You're doing it because you love them. You know that you understand the consequences of what they're doing. That's what God is so angry about sin. Man, we ought to be. Look at the world and what it's done to our society. Look at homes that are broken. Because this awful power lives in the hearts of men and they're addicted to it. We think of addiction in terms of drugs and alcohol, but I'll tell you, every form of sin is addicting. It will get a hold on your heart and your mind to where you just can't stop running back to that thing. It's an empty well, but you can't stop trying to get something out of it. It never will satisfy, but you can't stop. You know, the song is sung, I was in sin's prison. It's a prison, isn't it? It's a terrible, terrible thing. You wonder why God hates it? Because it's a bunch of rules? No. Because it absolutely will destroy the very thing that He set out to create in the beginning. Do you think He can allow one single atom, if you will, of sin to exist in the future universe? It would be a cancer that would eat it all up if it was allowed to exist. I'll tell you, God is going to eradicate. And God help me, God help every one of us to allow Him to eradicate it out of our lives, to draw us away from it, to give us the same feeling toward it that He has. Not like a Pharisee, but like somebody who loves His purpose. Someone who loves Him. Someone who understands what this is all about. Thinking of another scripture. I think it's in chapter 4. You got another picture here of what this is all about. You know, we live down here and we certainly are works in progress at best. I think many times we think we're a lot further down the road than we really are. We don't understand. You know, one of the problems about rule-based religion is that you think you're better than you are because you keep a few external rules. Oh, God help us. And of course, you evaluate yourself not by the divine standard, but by everybody around you. Well, I don't cheat anybody. I don't tell lies, at least not bad ones. I don't do this. I don't kill people, certainly. Rob banks, give me a break. I'm a good citizen. And so, you know, people think in terms of some major violation of some external rule. They have, you know, God's not stupid. God doesn't look at things the way you and I do. He sees the very depths of your heart.